Earth Day, and with all the crisis that is happening, and we want to restore Earth. But the most important thing that I think is that do we just want to restore Earth, or do we also want to restore ourselves? Because when you restore ourselves, then we restore Earth alongside, and we both work hand in hand. We are not two separate entities. But in the civilization today, we see that we are exerting influence over nature, and we think that we are separate from nature. And according to the view mankind has, that mankind is today thinking that it's nature's owner, and it can manipulate nature the way it wants to. Look at what is happening today. We are having an airborne disease. Air is one of the 5 elements in our body. So when you look at the human body, the 5 elements of the 5 are earth, water, fire, ether, air, right? These are the Panch Tattvas. And then you have Panch Mahabhut, which is in the environment around, and which are exactly the same. So we are directly connected. And my thing and my thinking is that can we stop these kind of natural disasters as we are facing with COVID today by just actually becoming aware of the fact that we are connected directly to Earth. And on the other hand, we are going to be discussing also how the climate crisis is, and how the climate is changing and what is happening there. And then we're also talking about the chakras and how the Earth chakra and how that is influencing Earth, and how we are directly connected through our own energy centers in our body to the Earth. I also want to talk about sustainable fashion and how it is so important to know and to care and to become more and more aware of how we can actually, through what we wear and what we do, and even our thoughts, everything is actually affecting the environment around us and how we can change that. So first of all, I would like to start with, we have some amazing, interesting masters in their own field in where they are. So let's start with Nishu. And Nishu, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi. First of all, a warm good evening to all, and a very happy Earth Day. And thank you, Anu, for facilitating this session today. It's really interesting that we are talking about Earth, and with Earth about self and restoring ourselves. I think that's a great connect that you have drawn in the introduction part. I'm Nishu, and I work as the Director for Earth Day in South and Southeast Asia, and I provide inputs for the strategic development of programs and campaigns for countries in this region. And I would especially also like to thank Swami Mahesh ji, and I'm very honored to share the stage with you. Thank you for being on the panel. Well, that's a little bit about me. If you talk about Earth Day, I think we'll come to that in the latter part.
Yeah, we'll come to that. Yeah. Yes. So you know what my idea was, just to let you know, is that let's also this is an informal chat, and let's also the viewers know a little bit more about us and how we are connected and why we feel what we feel for. Okay, Swami Mahesh, could you please introduce yourself right now?
Namaste. My name is Swami Mahesh Anand Saraswati. I go by my easy name, Swami Mahesh. And I was in the field of engineering studies, and then there was my calling in yoga. I moved into that field, and the connection that I have with myself and with the world and nature around me, I feel it is at an elevated level, and the experience is just amazing. I have met wonderful people along my journey in yoga. I met Anu at this yoga school, and we have a wonderful connection now. I'm happy to meet Nishu ji here.
Right. Great. So, Nishu, what I was thinking was that what I would really like to know is what really does Earth Day today mean to you, and what do you think is the crisis? What is the problem? What is it that we need to look into? What is it that we should address? Nishu?
Hello. Sorry, can you hear me?
I can totally hear you. Yeah. I can totally hear you. Yeah.
There was some disturbance. I couldn't hear you. I just heard Nishu.
Okay. So all I said was that, I just wanted to know from you, what is your take on what is happening to Earth today? What do you think is the crisis? What do you think the situation is? What do you think needs to be addressed, when we are talking about the planet that we are in?
So, great that you brought that up. And as you will see and as we're witnessing, great that you brought up the topic of COVID as well. I would say over-consumerism is really creating a havoc for the environment and our natural resources. Coupled with over-consumerism, we have a growing population and there's a rising demand from all corners, which has really resulted in depletion of natural resources and increased carbon dioxide emissions. Look at us living in urban areas where from all the technical gadgets that we have to everything that we our daily lives, that is just so connected to the carbon dioxide emission that we do, and also the pollution, climate change. So these are all interlinked, and the entire ecosystem, I would say, is in a state of imbalance, which is then resulting in increased number of natural calamities like wildfires and droughts and floods. So I would say that it's really connected. That this over-consumerism is at the focal of all the issues, because as we talked, Earth is only source of survival of all living beings. And we human beings are just a part of Earth. We are not completely. We're not the ones that are ruling this planet. There are other beings, there are other species. Yet, if you see, since the dawn of civilization, humanity has actually caused loss of, several wild animals. We've lost so many species. If you look at the IUCN list, there's a list of extincting species. We know that Gangetic dolphins, for instance, are going to be extinct. We just have them in hundreds now. So, all of this is interconnected with the fact that humans really are the thing that we are all. But if we look at ourselves, we're just a tiny speck in this entire universe.
Right. Absolutely.
We're not all, and we have to really live within this ecosystem and not rule it, as we say. A simple thing, great that you also brought the topic of sustainable fashion. I would just add that here, that clothes and fashion, for instance, they cause huge amount of water. They use a lot of water in the production process, and then what happens? The quality as it was in our earlier times, it would be passed on to generations. Now, most of the clothes, just being cheap quality, they ultimately land up in our landfills and are adding to our ecosystem. So, fashion industry in itself is contributing to this build-up of ocean microplastics. So that is the problem of over-consumerism, and thinking that we are at the core of it.
Absolutely, Nishu, I was just thinking of the same thing about when we talk about sustainable fashion. We're talking about like things being made. Like today, there are companies that are actually doing eco-friendly, designing. Yeah, people are getting in, and not like Esprit, which is such a big company. They've tied up with Vovo, who's giving these, I am sustainable label on each garment that they are advertising, and I'm sustainable is written on it. So we see that there is a lot of awareness that is rising, but maybe just not enough, because even the designers, they are not finding fabric which is sustainable. So there is also, on the other hand, you have technologists and you have people who are trying to develop like wooden pulp and real natural fiber viscose, which has 50% lesser water consumption as what you were talking about, and which are also doing 50% carbon emission. So as a result of which we are, but if you go back to come on, like when I look at my grandmother, and the kind of sustainability that we naturally as Indians have is phenomenal. We use clothes. I
Just to
mean,
give
till
an
date.
example, this sari that I'm wearing today is from my mother who gave it to me, and it's from her grandmother that gave to her. And it's the Kashmiri silk, a beautiful piece that I still love to wear.
Correct.
And if you look at the quality, it's absolutely fabulous. But do we have these sustain? Like, you're right, we don't find the right fabric, but I think we've lost that. We Indians had it.
We are losing. But the thing is, that's even Indians are. Come on. I mean, look at yoga, for instance. Yoga started in India.
Yeah.
This is it wasn't even India then when yoga started, right, Mahesh?
Yeah, we can call it the Greater India or the Indian subcontinent where yoga started. And of course, over time, the divisions came, the boundaries came. But the good thing is, at least India has preserved this tradition. It's a living tradition, and there is still that continuity of knowledge. And we are still living with those principles of peace and harmony with everything, including nature.
Correct. Absolutely. And the thing is that we, Nishu, like exactly what also you were saying, we just need to, people who feel about this need to get together and just, it's not like that people don't know. Yeah. Indians have so much spiritual knowledge even, right? But we're just not looking at it. So we just need to be reminded, right? Mahesh, what would you say that when we talk of the chakras, for instance, and we say that there is an earth chakra and there's a Mooladhara chakra, and it is directly connected to the gravitational force that is earth. How do you think that actually goes into understanding, what the situation or what the problems today are happening? Is it that lack of knowledge? And how can we get that knowledge and help ourselves, help the planet and help ourselves?
Yeah, we definitely are in a crisis mode now. And I'll start with something from the Vedas. It says, Yatha Brahmande Tatha Pinde. As in the universe, so is in our individual frame.
Absolutely,
we are part of the larger whole, and the sum of the total of these individuals, they are making the larger whole. So what we need to understand is that if we create any negative vibration in the individual consciousness, it is affecting the larger consciousness. And this is what has happened because of our greed, because of our own personal interest, and then lack of understanding of how we are impacting the environment. What is happening is that we are focused on our own desires, but we are not realizing the impact we are having on the larger scale. But now that impact is quite clear. It's clear in the terms of pollution that we are facing, in terms of all this bacteria, virus, and all the situation, in terms of how I read that at least some billion species have been extinct in just last few 50 or 100 years.
Correct. Absolutely. And the thing is that I also, on the other hand, day before yesterday, I went and planted a tree in my own compound because we are not going out these days. And I feel that even just planting trees, like simple things of, connecting with nature, makes such a huge difference, And then, of course, Mahesh, about the inner tree that we talk about, the tree of life, so which each and every person has. Each and every person has a tree with branches inside, right? But you can even say there's a tree in the mind, you can say there's a tree in the body, and you can think of like where the trunk is and where the branches and where the flowers are. So like whether your positive thoughts and your love and your compassion. The interesting thing is that when I started to meditate, when I was doing the Buddhist meditation, and then I started to realize that how anger actually has, it has like emission, it has carbon emission, because it produces negative heat from the body of a person. So it's so amazing that these are little things, even thoughts that one has. Nishu, when I was like, we don't think these things, but when we have a bad thought and a terrible thought or a criminal thought about somebody, right? we are actually impacting the environment around us. So it's not just, it's not just clothes, it's not just, it's not just on the earth, it's also like our thoughts. So Nisha, what would you say that, if we were to come to a conclusion, and, what do you think that would there be a takeaway you'd like to give to people and say that, you should do this or you shouldn't do this, or these are the goods and the bads, and, this can help you? What would you say from your point of view?
Thanks, Anu. Great that you brought out the point of, really, just simple thing that COVID, it is further deteriorated with the stress that we have. And we've already seen that, a small virus like COVID has already caused such a huge chaos and disruption in our society. I would just say that when lockdown had happened, the earth was able to restore itself. We saw that humans came together and it really brought them closer to nature. For instance, people in Bombay suddenly saw peacocks, and in Chandigarh people were taking images of the Himalayas.
Completely,
They're normally shrouded in the distance.
Yes.
We saw Ganga River, for instance. There were huge articles
Yes.
whether that Namami Gange fund that is going, whether that was really needed, because the lockdown of just a month really cleaned up the river. So I would say that Earth is able to restore itself, and it will eventually, and our planet Earth will still survive, whether as a blue planet or as a hot planet or as a cold planet or as a shredded planet. Whether humans will be able to survive or not is a big question mark, and that is why it really puts a greater responsibility on humans and on several, in fact, Earth Day is not just for one, it is for everyone. And that is why, our programs are designed and meant for each of the person on this earth, because really it puts responsibility on all the segments of society to come together and reach millions in a short time. And I would say that, as you mentioned, no act is too small. And if people really want to know what can they do to restore the earth, I would say that every action counts. It is as basic as fixing a leaky tap, for instance, in our homes.
Completely.
Or using that water that goes out from our purifiers. As you mentioned, planting our garden. Making sure that our home waste does not add up the burden of landfills, and we segregate and compost it as and when possible. Making sure that we use and reuse and keep using quality clothes and have small. We don't need everything in our things. Maybe we need just 10, but really nice, good quality dresses that can be then passed on to generations. And these are things that, and certainly, when I speak to my parents, and when we talk about, the values that they had, and then our grandmothers, these are not things that we need to reinvent. These were already
completely
there. These were our values, like so.
Absolutely. It's like we don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's exactly just that.
It's
absolutely.
These were there, and
I think that what a very important thing that you brought is the fact that it just starts with one person, each one of us individually. It's like, even just like, can we just look after our house? Can we just look after our body, our clothes, our thoughts, and just look after our house? Even things like, waste management. That's huge. We are not even separating the waste. You have, Mahesh, you remember in the ashram, how we used to separate the waste in 3 biodegradable stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah. And, so you had you had the dry paper in one bucket, you had food in one bucket, and you had plastic in another bucket. You remember? And we burnt all the paper in fire, right? And we burnt and we took the food and used it as compost.
Yeah, and it brings to life your trees. I've been doing it for so long, and I this is something that I learned from my mom, because she would, all the kitchen waste, especially your fruit waste and vegetable waste, would all go to the garden, and it will really bring out those beautiful flowers. And this is something that I can learn in Delhi as well. and it really reduces the amount of waste that you would otherwise just throw away. And
Absolutely.
and the amount of methane that is produced out of the food waste as well is something that perhaps needs to be addressed.
Totally.
And
Totally. Okay, so Mahesh, what would you say if you were summing it up, and if there was a takeaway you wanted to give to our viewers, what would you say?
Sure. You see, it's a good topic and it's a good occasion also to not just discuss, but also to think of how we can implement. So it's always a good idea to refer to the scriptures. And if you look at the Vedic rishis, the way they had this wonderful synergy with nature, the way they loved and cared for nature, they had this wonderful growth and evolution in contact with nature. So they were praying for peace for everything. There is the famous mantra, Om Bhyo Shanti, Antariksha Shanti, Prithvi Shanti, Apah Shanti.
Yeah.
So they are praying for peace into every dimension that is there that we interact with. And then you brought up a very beautiful topic that there is this tree, and it's mentioned beautifully in Gita, that there is this inverted banyan tree. It is imperishable, its roots are up and its branches are down. And those who understand this tree, they really understand the Vedas, because Vedas are not some kind of books or some kind of literature you have to read.
Completely.
It has knowledge. It has to bring you to that wisdom of living with peace and harmony with everything around you. So this chakra system inside us, those are that is the part of the tree that is referred here. Because the crown chakra, Sahasrara, is the root through which everything enters from the cosmic dimension into our human frame. And these chakras are what resonates with all the elements in the universe. So if we are able to keep our chakra system in good health, if we are able to keep the chakras integrated with each other, then we not only play with the entire spectrum of human consciousness that we have, starting from basic instinct of Muladhara to the intuition and the spiritual guidance, then truly we can call ourselves humans who have the ability to rise beyond the level of the devas, because it is said even the devas have to come down to the human level to do their yoga sadhana and evolve. So we have this possibility. We have to understand that we are not just a tiny part, but we are also the connected part of the universe. And this connection we have to maintain with peace, with harmony, and also with a loving care. And that is why that understanding has to be instilled. And I am happy that we have Nishuji here, because we need people like this who work on the, let's call it the material dimension, to bring people into that awareness of what we are doing. And we also need the masters from the spiritual tradition who can guide us into higher understanding. So it's wonderful that these two things are coming together, and this should be the way forward. So the takeaway point, harmony, peace, and connection. Three important things.
Absolutely. This harmony thing is so beautiful, that just the whole idea of creating harmony. We are actually harmony, but we have lost it because we are imbalanced, So it's just like the balancing of our body, mind, and soul. Yeah, Nishu, were you saying something?
Yeah, I was just adding to what Swamiji said, that, in fact, we realized it. And today, on Earth Day, we had a very big interfaith summit today, wherein we brought together religious and faith leaders from different religious groups. And we talked about, I will share the link with you and Anu as well, wherein religious leaders talked about how nature is written in all these, different, like in Islam and in Hindu. Every scripture, every religious book, that is also one thing that is common is the care for nature and restoring our earth. So that is something that is really so important. So even if you look at our, everything, that is just so one thing that connects us all.
I had written a poem, and this was like about 12 years ago, when I just started writing my first book then. So this poem came, and I had written it, but it got edited from the book. So, but I am going to read it now. So the title is climate is changing. We have an unequivocal global warming. You respect God, you pray. You offer flowers, candles, incense, but you neglect nature. Puff up the atmosphere up with CO2. You burn incense for the divine with reverence. And you generate anger, which then warms the earth. No consideration. Sea levels are rising. Snow and glaciers melting. Warmer climate has earth hurtling at a quicker pace to inevitable human suffering predicted. Why won't hunger and disease spread? Water resources fumble. Fierce storms and droughts come. Large species of animals and plants go extinct. We seem to be bent upon to destroy nature. We have lost our inner balance. We disobey the laws of nature. So this is something that I wrote, and I've been, feeling. Yeah, and the thing is that when you live in, but it's like when I started my ashram life, everything, I've already grown up in a family that is very, very spiritual to us, and a very knowledgeable spiritual family. But, just living in that atmosphere and just thinking of doing, good to earth. Thinking of earth. I mean, we don't even, in the city, we have too many distractions, So, what do you think?
Well, there are a lot of practical ways we can create this balance and harmony. And one of the important points that you raised in your poem also, internal harmony. We have to start with that, because now we are living in a nuclear family situation, and then the more we disconnect from our roots, the more we are away from our internal harmony. So how can we connect with the roots? Well, the roots are inside. Through the chakra system, we can connect. Through the chakra system, we can heal ourselves and we can heal others. So let the healing start from inside and let it radiate. That will bring like-minded people together, and that energy will spread, and that healing will be more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Something, you have in me, you have a live example of that healing from inside, and now healing the planet and healing others. And absolutely, I totally agree with. Thank you so much, guys. We are just running totally out of time now. And I also have some music I wanted to play, but maybe I'll put it into the recording later. Which Nishi, a beautiful Nishu, that music that you sent me. I'm going to add it. And all the best to everyone, and happy day to everybody. Namaste.
Namaste.